Hi, welcome to the Coffee with Lisa podcast. I believe that everyone in business has missing structures and endless possibilities to create new opportunities. The challenge is most don't know how to leverage the relationships for a win-win. I believe that your relationships will make the difference in the results you'll achieve, the impact you will have, and the speed in which you will make opportunities happen. I believe that you can see things through, but you often struggle to see through things. I'll make the invisible visible, the complex simple. Because of these beliefs, I created the Coffee with Lisa podcast and have invited the best experts to join me and share their experiences and knowledge with you so you can move faster and gain a competitive advantage in life and in business. Thank you for joining us today at the Coffee with Lisa show. I'm very excited you're tuning in to learn more about extraordinary people and extraordinary circumstances and experiences and great expertise from some of the biggest and largest world thought leaders in the world. And today I have a really special guest. I have Bill Dolan on today, and Bill is an Emmy award-winning television producer, done over 10,000 productions. He has worked with Black Eyed Peas, Kenny Chesney, Mark Burnett. We all know who Mark Burnett is, with The Voice, the Shark Tank, Gwen Stefani, many different TV personalities, as well as experts about how to build their brand. And he has a very interesting story about how he died and how that changed the course of his life. So I want to welcome Bill. Hi, Bill. And your camera's not working.
What? There, it went off again. Okay, we're happy.
Well, welcome to the show, Bill. So, Bill, 1999, let's set the scene. You're sitting on an airplane and you're on your way to Nashville. And what happens?
Well, it was a great morning in that I was pretty giddy. In fact, I've joked that if I could reach back and pat myself on the back, that was what I was trying to do. Because after years of working in live television and years of doing a lot of corporate communications and entertainment, I was in a place where I have 5 kids that I thought this could be both the gold mine financially, but also an opportunity for me maybe to be a better husband, a better father. I had been chasing and running and traveling all the time. And, just to be honest, I was kind of an absentee father and husband. And I thought this could be the opportunity because I was going to produce a documentary. And I signed a special deal, or was about to sign a deal with a company in Nashville. They're going to write me a big check. I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. And this is going to be the beginning of a new phase in my career where I would focus on some long-term projects. They'd be more lucrative. And maybe I could be a better husband, a better father, maybe work on some passion projects. So this was a big morning for me. And like usual, I jumped out. I live always 20 minutes from the airport here in my hometown of Portland, Oregon, and got on the plane. But about 20 minutes into the flight, I wasn't feeling right. And I couldn't put my finger on it because I'm never, ever sick, ever sick. And it got to the point where, and for those of you that travel, there's that little bag in the front seat in front of you. And I remember for the first time looking at that seriously and thinking, oh my gosh, not the bag. I could actually be really sick here. And I was trying really hard and I was sitting really still. But the more I did, the more things felt like they were closing in on me. And I was traveling with my best friend, Timothy Greenidge, who is a very gifted gospel singer. And I didn't even want to say anything, but I turned to Tim. I said, Tim, something's not right. And that's the last thing I said. And my eyes rolled back in my head. My arms flopped by my side. And my heart completely stopped. Now, at first, Tim was trying to figure out, is Bill joking? Is there something wrong? But it was very quick. He realized something was wrong. And Tim didn't know CPR, but he had seen CPR. And curiously, about 2 weeks prior to this, he was at an event where someone actually died of a heart attack. So he had that vision in his head. What does it look like when somebody's dying? And boom, that's what he saw. So he jumped right into action, and he started doing chest compressions on me. It was like bang, bang, I guess. Again, this is his description. And when that didn't work, he lifted me from my seat and put me in the aisle and continued to just do chest compressions over and over again. And after about 2-3 minutes, he said he was about ready to just break my ribs. And that's when I took a breath. Now, the short version, just to kind of cut to the chase, is we did make an emergency landing, and I was ultimately diagnosed with a condition called malignant neurocardiogenic syncope. In other words, it's malignant in that you can die. Cardio, heart, brain, neuro, and it means out of sync. And they don't know what causes it, but what they do is they give you a pacemaker. So I have a pacemaker in my chest, and I'm actually on my second one. And 6 times a day, it intervenes to keep my heart from stopping. It gets to a dangerously low level. So even if during this interview I flop over, give it a minute, I'll be right back.
That's good to know, actually, as a podcast. Like, call me and don't know your address.
No, just kidding. I mean, I'm not going to flop over because it intervenes before then. But here's the thing, and why maybe it's a signature of all the things I've done in my life. I can tell you that experience and having a pretty profound after-death experience that changed me spiritually, it changed me intellectually, it changed me emotionally, it changed every aspect of my life and blew up paradigms that I had about careers and success, literally blew them up. It's the best thing. Dying is the best thing that ever happened to me, period. Wow. And it just changed me.
I would think that your children, your 5 children would say that a little bit differently than what you think.
Oh, they probably have their own version. Yeah, and my wife has even a better version of it, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure she does.
Yeah, so I can say that confidently, obviously, because I came back. And I really do, in my keynotes, I'm talking to groups, I will say, I wish all of you could die and then come back.
Yeah.
Because it would change how you live. So,
well,
context.
Today's day and what's happening in the economy right now, Bill, some people probably feel like they have died and are coming back.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, the story behind my death so relates, I think, to a lot of people, because it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, what career path you've taken. All of us have experienced some form of death. And in some cases, it's right now the death of our finances. For others, it might be the death of a relationship. Sometimes it might be the death of a dream. And I'd say one of the things that breaks my heart the most is, even though, I'm the marketing guy and the TV guy and the entertainment guy, so much of my message usually has to do with talking to men and women who are standing over a grave and putting the dirt, the last shovel of dirt, on their dreams that they thought were dead. And they're quietly aching inside, thinking it's too late. There isn't hope. It's not for me. And I'm there to say, get out your shovel, because your dreams have the power to be resurrected. It's too early to bury them. And that's really a piece of my story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and our dreams are what give us purpose. And I know that you talk a lot about purpose, right? And what wakes us up in the morning, what keeps us up at night. How does that give us drive and motivate us, whether it's in business or in life? And so I want to talk a little bit more about how did you get from out of the plane to the 7 DRM strategy? Like, fill me in on that gap.
Oh, yeah. And it was a gap. I love to tell you that, I had this death experience. I had this profound spiritual encounter, and boom, the light switch went on. And all of a sudden I was smarter and wiser and all that stuff. No, It, I tend to be one of those 2x4 learners. And that is a 2x4 to the head. And my life has been characterized by a few 2x4 moments. And this was one of them. This was a giant one. So I will say that it did cause me to reflect, because death is a biggie. And the impact it had on my wife, the fact that I had a medical device now in my chest. I had a cardiologist. I never had a cardiologist before. It just made me think differently. And then, so I began asking questions about why, what am I doing? And there's an old saying that one of the great challenges to climbing the ladder of success is getting to the top and realize you've been climbing the wrong ladder. And I can tell you, I was one of those guys. I was more about pace and careers and awards and money and blah, blah, blah. And so I took some time to reflect. And I grew up Catholic. And so raised by Jesuits who were like all about education. So I began going back to my philosophy books. I was like a big philosophy guy and psychology guy in school. And then I also ended up spending some time actually reading through the life of Jesus. Because one of the questions that I asked was this: if I'm in the communications business, who are the greatest communication mentors in the world? So I certainly looked at the classics, and even looked at companies I'd worked with, like a Nike and Adidas, and people that were marketing excruciatingly well. But it was that quiet time that I spent looking at the life of Jesus that I went, holy crud. I'm actually looking at the greatest marketing strategy in the history of mankind. And I started taking notes within the context of everything else I'd learned in marketing and advertising and in corporate communications. And it was then that it jumped out off the page that I saw 7 really core disciplines that were central to not only the greatest marketing plans, but also it was like looking at the template for making a movement. And that's when I went, and I began writing it down and then applying it. So I get client after client, I would start introducing it. And I didn't call it 7 disciplines at the time. In fact, I called it like 7 M's or something like that, because it was like these 7 things that started with the word M, then the letter M, and I went, that's it. And
Bill, your camera went out again.
Oh, there. The thing that was really blew me away is when I applied it, and I saw incredible results. And that's when I said, I'm going to have to teach this, and eventually I'm going to have to write it.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit more, because, I was, of course, doing some research on you, and I went through some of your posts, and I almost peed my pants giggling at the one post. And so I have to ask this question because it's so relevant today, and it's relevant about what we're talking about. And so the question was, how can we be more popular than toilet paper? And I think that was, I just had to laugh, because I think as subject matter experts and thought leaders and influencers and speakers and coaches and trainers, we really are trying to be relevant, and we're trying to be more popular than the latest trend that's happening. So I wanted to hear the insights on how that question came about, and what's the answer?
Oh, how do you be more popular than toilet paper? Well, one of the things that we've learned, again, being I have a degree in television production, but I was also a psychology major. And one of the great models that we use is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I don't have it all memorized, but I think most people have studied it. And it starts with, what are those basic needs, about safety and security and things like that. And then it gradually moves up the scale to these higher aspiring types needs of being actualized in the world and understanding my role in the universe. Not to say those are bad things, but let's look at the situation we're in right now. We live in a country here in the United States where we wrote an entire constitution and had a war that ran the risk of killing, literally obliterating our nation. And we did it over one driving factor, and that was freedom. Freedom was the number one thing. And when you read the Constitution, It's about freedom, freedom. And then how do you express that? And think about this. In the last early 2020 here, we made a decision to give up our freedom for safety. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad decision, but what I'm saying is that when you look at the hierarchy of needs and you really want to get to the core of what people do, what they believe, and what they'll take action on, you will always still come back to, what do I really need? What are my highest needs? Not just wants. What are my needs? What's mission critical? What's deadline driven? What will truly transform my life and provide an outcome that I need? And in this case, we needed security and safety. Okay, so we traded the very essence of our Constitution because of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, I'm not saying that's a bad decision, but now think about that from a marketing standpoint. Well, guess what? Toilet paper, we've decided, is pretty important. Okay, and when we got to a situation where we felt like we needed it, boom, we went after it. We rushed it. And the question I would ask is, do your products and services something that they're going, I need that. I really need that. Is it clear to them that they need that? Or is it aspirational? Because the more aspirational it is, the more it becomes a want. And it can be what I call, in the book, I think I call it, someday we ought to, or gee, it would be nice, or would it be nice if, fill in the blank. If your product or service is a gee, someday I ought to, it's going to be harder in a time when people are more focused on their needs than their aspirational goals. And that's how you become more popular than toilet paper, is recognize the role you play in that need.
Very good. Very good. So let's talk a bit more about, the messaging behind that, though, because if you're not clear on the message of, oh, there you went again. If you're not clear on your actual message and about their needs versus your needs, how can you ever position it to be more popular than toilet paper, or to be as popular as toilet paper?
Well, you can't. You just can't. You can fake it. I mean, a lot of people do. And this is kind of getting into some of the essence of the 7 disciplines. So just for the sake of those audience members going, well, what are the 7 disciplines? The short version is this. It is the discipline of mission, the discipline of market, the discipline of message, the discipline of messengers, methods, metrics, and multiplication. Okay. Now, obviously, there's a deep dive into each one of those. But when you start knowing your audience, and that's the principle of market, a lot of people approach it like a sociological exercise. I even talk about the idea of creating personifications as a great and really a brilliant marketing exercise, because it helps you have to think about your market, to know their wants and needs. But if you just treat it as a sociological, it robs you from truly having a relationship with them, because you've got to go deeper. And we got some tools in the book. And in fact, if you don't mind me saying, at the website 7drm.com, I've even put a spot there where we can download some work tools. So people that read the book, or they say, oh, I want to work on this, you can go to 7drm.com and there's a free downloads. And one of the exercises that we help people with is what we call the 10-digit human address. And the 10-digit human address is really that exercise that, let's say, for example, you realize, okay, there's a client that I want. I really feel like it's a perfect need. In fact, we even ask the question, not who will buy from you, but it's really a deeper question that says, who are you called to serve? Because it's a really hard question. It gets to a passion element. And when you understand that, the next question is, what are their wants? What are their needs? What are their interests? What are their fears? What are their frustrations? What are their objections? In fact, when you take those 6 together, they form what we call the win-off formula, which is the first 6 elements of the 10-digit human address. But then to understand them even a little deeper about their demographics, their psychographics, their media behaviors, their influencers, and their buying journey. These are going to be really, really important because ultimately we're going to take this into a campaign that's going to be relevant and meaningful to them.
Yeah.
And that means you know them so well. It's like, look, if I made you cookies, I said, Lisa, I make cookies. You go, oh, I love cookies. And I shove you a plate of cookies, and it's, let's say it's raisin oatmeal. Okay. Or raisin oatmeal with walnuts. Oh boy, talk about a tough issue. Do you put nuts in your cookies or not?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the great philosophical questions of the day.
Yeah.
But let's say, no, I'll just ask, are you a nut person or not?
I love nuts.
Okay. Okay. I'm not a nut person. So I make cookies for me. I like cookies that are soft. I prefer chocolate in them. So I would never, and I say this lovingly, I would never put a raisin in any of my cookies.
Yep.
I would never put a nut in any of my cookies. And I think they're the best cookies in the world. And I give them to you. And you go, they're nice cookies. Yeah, oh, that's fine. But if I know you and I love you and I want to serve you, guess what? I'm going to put nuts in your cookies.
Exactly. Well, it's practicing Dr. Tony Alessandra's platinum rule. And we talked a little bit about this off camera, about the difference between the golden rule and the platinum rule. And, the golden rule really for years and years and years, people still do because they're not aware of the platinum rule. But the golden rule says, treat others how I'd like to be treated. Well, the problem is you're right, Bill. I like raisins in my cookies and I like nuts and you don't. So why would I give you nuts and raisins? That makes no sense. But if you practice the platinum rule of treat others how they'd like to be treated, just as you suggested, the whole paradigm of the conversation, of the relationship completely shifts. And for a sales professional, that is key to the pivot of whether or not they're going to do business with you or not.
Exactly. Exactly. And a lot of marketing folks, and I've said this before, when I've worked with brilliant marketing teams, one of the characteristics that I see, even if they don't have PhDs and all that, number one characteristic is emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
When they bring emotional intelligence to the table, they turn a campaign from a spreadsheet to really a love letter.
Yeah.
And the idea of saying, I know you, I love you, I care about you. I am going to speak in a manner that's relevant. I'm going to communicate in ways that are meaningful. And I recognize, by the way, I know you have outcomes and transformation you want to experience. So how can I help you arrive at that? Not how many widgets can I sell on my product? And mark you off as a ring the bell, I just sold something.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you have a real defined process in your 7DRM. And I want to just dive a little bit because I think this is a great time to dive into. Let me just take this off the screen. Oops. Sorry, I had a little technical difficulty here. Now, why won't that come up? Okay, so it's the authentic purpose compass. And for some reason, it's not coming up properly, but
we can see it behind there.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about the 7 purpose compass. What does that, in order to be really truly have a relationship with somebody and to practice the platinum rule, you have to be authentic. And I call that the frequency of our greatness. Mm-hmm. And so we determine and figure out how we can be genuinely authentic us, we have a much better opportunity and a better success rate in actually having a relationship with somebody and for practicing the authentic purpose compass. So let's talk a little bit about that compass.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things, like you said it so well, is that to have a relationship, it's ideally you'll have a relationship with yourself. You know yourself. I see a lot of people that talk about self-love and as if it's the goal, as if it's the one thing. And I think it's one of the things. And if you don't know yourself, like I said about the ladder of success, we often will just run. And sometimes at the end of our life, clearly I'm not in my 20s anymore. I hang around with a lot of people in that midlife and upper scenario that are busy going, okay, I made money. I got the titles. I got this. what is my life really about? And that authentic purpose compass is this great place to know yourself so that you can serve others better. So let me just explain. I talk to a lot of colleges and universities, and especially in the younger generation, they've heard this line, and maybe you've heard it too. If you just pursue your passion, you'll never have to work another day in your life. And I say, bottom line, that's BS. Because, you know,
there's a lot more to that recipe of success than just pursuing your passion.
Exactly. And here's one of the big challenges is that I know there's a lot of people who are passionate. For example, people in my industry, maybe they like the music, they love the entertainment, they love the TV side, they love the glamour side or whatever like that. But what do you call someone, or what do you call something where it's a passion, but you don't have aptitude for it? We call it a hobby.
Yeah.
And it makes for a bad career. So what we always say is that you have to have passion, always have passion, because when you mix it with aptitude, now you have a nucleus to do something powerful. Because, I mean, when you grew up, chances are, Lisa, you probably had kids that looked at you and said, oh, Lisa's good at this, and Lisa's good at this. And, you know, kids, maybe there was the math kid in school, or there was the art kid, or the athlete kid, or whatever. And I was kind of like the music kid, okay? But what happens when you just have aptitude without passion? You just have a job.
Exactly.
And this is a great danger. There's people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s that are trying to find joy from 5 to 9 p.m. because they are fried from 9 to 5. Because early on, someone said, oh, you're good at this. You need to do this. Oh, you're good at this. And our parents and loved ones all around us that are more concerned about us having a living have been pushing us into career paths because they knew that we could make a living, and that gave them peace.
Yep.
But it didn't serve our passions. And that's, I mean, I'm finding, like I said, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s are going, you know what? I left my passion behind because I found a job. So when you combine passion and aptitude, now you have a nucleus that you can really build from. But there's a third element. And if you've lived for 20 minutes, chances are you've had experiences. And I look at those experiences that validate your assumptions. For example, am I really passionate about that? Do I really have aptitude? And you start looking back and you see there's a trail of things that you have done in your life. And it starts to come together. When you start putting those three things together, you see a trajectory. It's in the book, I say that a lot of us are praying to God for a map. Give me clarity. Give me the answer, da-da-da. And that prayer is usually answered with a compass. And that compass really is understanding your passion, your aptitudes, and your experiences. And now you can start moving in a level of clarity. For me, I mean, it took me years before it really caught on. Dang, I love this. And dang, I'm good at this. Yeah. And dang, I've done a lot of this. So when you understand that, it's a game changer, total game changer.
Well, and I think people too, and this has been my experience working, you know, especially with transitioning executives out of the C-suite. They have passion, they have experience, they have all this knowledge, this wisdom, they have all these stories to share with the world. The problem is they don't know how to articulate the passion that they have. They don't know how to articulate that one defining core message to go out to the world with their personal brand and move forward in that one thing that resonates with everybody. And, you know, that's your core market message. And you have a recipe for that. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, again, moving past the idea that you've worked through the authentic purpose compass, and I actually encourage in the book for people to build a mission manifesto. Yeah. In that mission manifesto, and I kind of articulate a formula for that helps you really craft that. You know yourself, you know your offering, you understand the value you bring, and then when you understand, this is you doing a little physical here. I'm with my right hand. And here's your audience. Well, when you take into account right here, this audience is over here, that 10-digit human dress. What are their wants? What are their needs? What are their fears, their frustrations, their buying journey? Then you can take into serious consideration what are the elements of your message that integrate with that. For example, classic formula, features. I need to know what it is I'm offering. That's important, but we don't typically buy on features, we buy on benefits. So I encourage people to not only understand what they're offering to this audience that's going to be meaningful and relevant to give them the outcomes and transformation they want, but to articulate the benefit, and even deeper, the benefit of the benefit. So when you start outlining that, then you move into another element, and that is proof. Because in the sales world, it'd be easy. It's not like we're buying Snickers bars at the grocery store, where the cost of interaction is very low.
Yeah.
Unless Snickers bars have nuts in it, and that's another story.
Well, you'd never buy a Snickers bar.
I'd buy a Snickers bar, but not that raisin nut cookie. Ain't doing that.
That's up.
I'll make some for you.
No.
The idea is that the more the cost of engagement, in other words, a higher price ticket, the more people want to understand the depth. In other words, they need to process and walk through a more deliberate journey of learning and understanding so that they can embrace and that they can buy in. There's a psychological journey that goes on, and it's the longer or the more high ticket the item, the more cost there is, the more people there is, the more you have to be deliberate about that. And so the other element in that message recipe is proof. In other words, what are the facts? What are the stats? What are the case studies? What are the stories? What are the testimonials that weave in the benefits of the benefits related directly to the wants, needs, fears, frustrations of your audience? Okay. So again, you're looking for that glove that fits. And then of course there's differentiation. The truth is that we are flooded right now. Every day, they estimate somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000 brand impressions a day. And one of the great dangers that I see among businesses is they do kind of what I call Me Too marketing. And I don't mean like the Me Too movement. It's more like the, hey, this company offers this, me too. This company offers this, me too. You know, and what do we compete on? Is there price or relationship? Relationship's good, price is good, but there's power in the relationship when you can differentiate the total offering that you have in your product. We call it a unique selling proposition. I have a dear friend who calls it rising above the noise.
Yeah.
Because there's so much noise out there that differentiation is critical, and every aspect of your brand becomes part of the art of creating that differentiation. But another element is cost. And it's not just the cost of the item, it's the cost of not buying from you. Remember, people make decisions on pleasure and pain. And pain is actually the number one driver. And so in the case of the pain that your customer, your client is experiencing, they're right now feeling the absence of not having the outcome or transformation they want. And they need to see that your unique offering is going to address that pain and do more than that. You're going to give them peace. You're going to give them satisfaction. You're going to give them all the things they desire and more. But if you don't buy, heartache. There's a cost to not buying this particular product, okay? Now, when you take those elements and you make them relevant, you start to put them together, the seed of that, the product of that is what we call our core message. And it's that core message that says, this is what we offer. This is how it benefits uniquely you. And then, of course, from a methodology strategy, how you deliver that message is going to also be uniquely designed for that unique customer. For example, some people, social media is the platform to deliver that. For others, billboards. For others, it's TV. For others, I mean, I grew up in TV. We used to think everybody needed a TV ad. I don't believe that anymore.
Times have changed.
Yeah. And this is just a little side note, a little caution, is be careful of marketing people who really are methodology people. Because what they're doing is they're selling a method designed to get you to buy their method. And it might work. It really might, but they have absolutely no objectivity to the real strategy about your message because they're married to a method.
Oh, Bill, I'm telling you, I wish you would have told me that 2 years ago, and I wouldn't have spent a lot of money to learn that hard lesson. But that is the reality. It is a method, and there's no strategy, and it's very difficult to find people like yourself who are creative directors, and they talk about the strategy first, and how do you align to your brand and your vision, your mission. Do you know who you actually are selling to and who your buyers are? I mean, those are foundational principles that so many businesses and especially in my world of personal brands, they miss that whole boat. And then they wonder why. Well, why can't I sell an online course? Or why is my book not selling or what have you? Well, those are the reasons why. That is the foundational principles in order to actually get lift.
Yeah. And I want to really, when you talk about lift, I want to raise the bar because there are a lot of great companies that are using some of these principles. For example, they create personas, they've got their messaging sheet, whatever like that. But the idea, and the reason the book is called The 7 Disciplines of Relationship Marketing is this clear acknowledgement. Let's get it off the table right now. Relationships are hard.
Yeah.
They're hard work. And as much as we want to systematize all our marketing and turning into a sociological exercise, leaders and organizations and marketers, anybody that is involved in engaging with your brand and growing your organization has to be emotionally intelligent and committed to knowing your market. The same way a CEO, guess what? You want to know what your other market is? We know this. It's not just the loudspeaker message you're shoving out your front door. It's the message that's living inside the walls of your organization. It's a 360-degree relationship that your brand is not just something like a paint job outside. Your brand is something you live. Your brand is the soul of your organization. And your marketing message, yes, it goes out to your client, but it is lived and it's breathed by the very people inside your organization because you have a relationship with them. And when you raise it to that bar, it's hard. Don't get me wrong. It's hard. You're going to work harder at this, but it is a game changer, especially if you're that person that said, I've done the Authentic Purpose Compass, and I realize my life is about making a difference in the world. My life is about leaving a legacy. My life is about doing something that's going to make an impact on other people's lives, which is what we're experiencing right now. We're recognizing relationships are important. What it means is that from 9 to 5, you can be walking in the fulfillment of your authentic purpose and not looking at the clock thinking I get to start it at 5 o'clock. You live it. It's integrated into your life. It's integrated into your culture. And it is a game changer, absolute a game changer.
Well, I always say that a transactional relationship is a short-term philosophy. A relationship-driven relationship is a long-term strategy. And in order to get the benefits of a long-term strategy, you've got to put the work in, period. And it takes time and energy, and it takes resources of your own time and your people time to do. And so until you really figure that component out, you're not going to have the success that you want, whether it's in life or in business.
And I think a really important point you make there, the difference between transaction and relationship. I'm finding out the more I'm in the marketplace and talking about my book that I talk about relationship marketing. And I'm finding out that there are some people in traditional sales role that go, oh yeah, I know relationship marketing. And there is, and I'm saying this lovingly, there are people that fake a relationship, that fake an interest in your kids or fake an interest in your dog or fake an interest in your golf game because they want a transaction. And it reminds me of like when I was in high school, when you're young and a young guy and you go out on a date and you're thinking, where are my eyes during this date over dinner? Okay. And people say, no, look at me. Okay. Look at me. And
well, from the other side of the table, it was, hello, they're here.
Right here. Well, guess what? Your clients and your customers know that because they realize, oh my gosh, you're staring at my wallet and not in my eyes.
Yeah.
And people can read through that. So relationship marketing is not just another tactic to get in somebody's wallet. You know, it really has to be genuine. It has to be a heart thing, because when you have a heart thing, people can read it. And that is a game changer, absolute game changer.
Absolutely. Well, I always say actions speak much louder than words. And the frequency of your greatness is the actions that you take. And, you know, the more actions you take to prove the authenticity of your relationship and why you're reaching out, the more likelihood you're going to have a long-term profitable business relationship.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, in today's day, and I had the great Dr. Peter Legg on yesterday, and Peter is the chairman of the board of the Canadian Media Group. And we were talking about how today the lost art of communication of a thank you note is gone, of a handwritten letter is gone. And I'm hoping, and it was both of our hope, was that through this time of crisis that we're having, that lost art maybe becomes a renewed sense of communication and a resource of investment into the relationships that we have.
Mm-hmm. I think there's multiple touch points. Again, going back to that cookie analogy, when you know your audience, you know your customer, you know your client or your prospective client, if you need to give that note, give that note. If you need to give them a call, if you need to schedule a meeting, you know, whatever it is. I mean, we've heard people talk about the 4 love languages. You know, that there's gifts and there's time together. That when you know that, you give the gift that's meaningful and relevant.
Yeah. So I have a question. I have 2 questions for you before we close out the show. Okay. One, what was it like to work with Gwen Stefani? That's a personal question. Okay. What was it like to work with Gwen?
Well, you know, I use Gwen as an example as someone who was born with the gift of charisma. The thing about Gwen, I can think of a whole bunch of stories, really, but probably the single biggest thing is that, you know, when we talked about knowing yourself and knowing your gifting, that authentic purpose compass, and maybe looking at your experiences, I truly believe that everybody has a unique and a divine calling, but some people are given unique gifts. And one of the gifts that Gwen has is that she oozes this authentic charisma. It's her. I mean, most people would say, I mean, right now she's judged on all these shows about voice and stuff. I mean, let's just really be honest. If you actually heard her before she was famous, would anybody say, that's the most incredible singing voice in the world? Probably not. We'd say, no, she's not Lady Gaga or, you know, Gloria Estefan or whatever. But it's who she is. And so I remember the first time I actually saw her in arena, and it was an arena show that I was directing, about 20,000 people. And I actually had a number of other bands, big bands that were lined up for this giant concert. And when it came time for Gwen, okay, the lights go out in the arena. The crowd starts to roar. And then you start hearing the drum beat. Boom, 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 boom. And slowly, a group of dancers start coming out in sequence, one at a time. And the anticipation was enormous. And then the light hit. She steps on the stage. She consumed the entire room. The entire room. This is 20,000 seats. And I've worked with a lot of different artists, and they use smoke and lights and mirrors and all the wonderful things that we use in the entertainment space. But she, in her purity, had the ability to capture that room like no other artist I've worked with. And of course, all the camera guys afterwards were thanking me for getting to work with her. And they said, wow, she also smells really good.
Well, that's maybe that was the attraction for her. And what's the gentleman's name that she's with now?
Blake. Yeah, Blake.
Blake.
Yeah.
wondered because she seems like an authentically genuine human being, and she absolutely has a lot of charisma, and she's not afraid to be who she is. And that's inspiring for any woman and any man. So I think that's amazing that you actually have some of those stories and you were able to witness that relationship directly.
Yeah, and just a footnote on that is that now she obviously has something inside of her, but the thing that I can't emphasize enough is that I think all of us have that authentic seed inside of us. And in many cases, we've put so much veneer or maybe fear, like, if I come out and tell you I like to bake cookies and I love my cat, and I love to take walks in the forest or whatever it is, and or I love poetry, or I could listen to Stairway in Heaven on a loop for days at a time.
Yeah.
Someone might go, you're a freakish person and I can't relate to you. And I have to take that risk. But I've gotten to a point where I'm so comfortable with the fact that, yeah, I'm a different kind of person. That if everybody recognizes that in their uniqueness, there's power. And there's power in being able to love yourself and to know yourself, but to recognize that you have a unique gift that you can speak into someone's life that no one else can. It's like, there's people that don't like Gwen Stefani. But guess what? Those that do,
love her.
Yeah.
Yep. I think you learn, when you're in your 20s, you're trying to prove yourself and figure yourself out. When you're in your 30s, you've figured yourself out perhaps, but now you're making some mistakes, and then you get in your 40s, and I'm just about turning into my 50s. And I think you learn along the way, though, that you cannot be something to everybody. You just need to be you. And those who like you will come and attract themselves to you, period. And those that don't, that's okay. Because there's billions of people in the world, and we don't have to like everybody, and we most certainly don't have to know everybody. And not everybody's going to like us.
And what peace there is, I think it is tough, because I work with, and I know you do, and people on the show that right now, they work for giant companies, and they've got shareholders, and they've got boards, and they've got employees, and they've got buyers, they've got like that. And one of the great risks is that we try so hard to be all things to all people that we lose the essence, that charismatic essence that makes us unique leaders. And what I would hope that people can gradually migrate into, and maybe what this whole season is forcing us by shooting videos from our home, I'm working with a guy, multi-billion-dollar company, and we're talking to him in his kitchen. Yeah. That somehow we'll recognize the humanity in all of us. And in that, we'll be able to form deeper relationships, and we'll be able to rise to that unique brand essence and value that we bring to the world instead of just the facade. So kill the facades, be real.
100% agree, Bill. It's like a reset in life.
Yeah, very much so.
I'd like to close the show with one final question, and I ask this to all of my guests. And so my question to you, Bill, is if you could tell your younger 20-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
It's funny you asked that, because my 20-ish-year-old son asked me that the other day. And I said, one of the things that I would say is I would encourage that person, Bill or Billy or whatever you want to call him. I'd say, Billy, you have a unique and divine purpose. That every day that you take a breath, you might take it for granted, but the truth is, it's a gift. You didn't earn it. You don't deserve it. But the fact that you get up every day is a validation that you have a powerful purpose. And you might not feel perfect. That's okay. None of us are. But every day you're picking up the experience of your life, and you're going to build not just a life, you're going to build a launch pad, and you're going to change lives. in a way that only you can. And you're going to get hurt and you're going to get disappointed, but never be afraid to be hurt, because that's the cost of relationship. That's the cost of love. And never be afraid of hard, because the greatest accomplishments in this world are all hard. So if you're willing to be vulnerable, you're willing to be yourself, you're willing to walk that journey, you're going to potentially change the world. So take that gift, take it as a precious gift. And then I'd give me a hug.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. You know what? I think that resonates, and I don't think it matters if you're 20, you're 30, you're 40, you're 50, you're 60, or you're 70. That resonates regardless of where you are in your life. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate your time and the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Thank you for joining me on the Coffee with Lisa. And until we maybe perhaps can see each other in Portland one day.
Yeah, it would be great. Lisa, thank you so much. I love and appreciate you so much and love your show.